Okay, I think we're live. Making sure here on YouTube. And let me verify on Facebook as well. If anybody is tuning in, please do put a comment in because that will make it a little easier for us to tell if we are properly streaming here to Facebook. But it looks like things are live now, so I will get things started here very shortly. Trying to set up my windows as usual. If that did work, that might have been the smoothest startup that I've ever had because I always have something wrong. So classic. Okay, there's Joel, Sandra, Anna, Lois, Linda, Phyllis. Hey, thank you all for jumping in. And thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate you being willing to come on here. We've taken about a 9-month hiatus here. It's taken a little bit of time to kind of get back in the saddle here with everything going on. But you've been on my list for a while of people I want to interview, and I'm really excited to get started on this.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you, like a lot of the people that I asked to be on the show, they're like, really? Like is it? But I totally think like what you qualify with what you do. It's a very different sort of job, I guess. Compared to so many other jobs. So I appreciate it. And thank you everybody for tuning in. We've got Mark, Judy, and Joy. Nice to see you all, as well as everybody lurking and not commenting. Um, I want to start off. We'll get started here because I know we have quite a few things to go through, and I want to ask the classic question. Of course, I'm Jamin Holmgren, but you're Andrea Mickelson. Whose girl are you?
So I'm Andy and Nora Michelson's. Nora was Matson. She was Lou and Penny's.
Oops, I think I
So,
lost you, Andrea. Can you back up just to the Lou and Penny part?
so my mom is Lou and Penny's youngest daughter, and then my dad is the oldest in Delbert and Rosella's family. So
Yeah,
that's most people probably know who they are.
yeah, right.
So and yeah.
That's usually who I like to start with. And where'd you grow up?
So I grew up most of my life up here in Yakult, Washington, in Vancouver, in Clark County.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we lived a very short couple years in Florida when I was little,
Oh, I didn't know that.
4 to 6. Yeah. So we moved down there in March of '82 and
Okay.
came back in August of '84. So,
Are you the oldest of your siblings?
and then I'm the oldest of seven.
Of
So,
seven. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, and where do you live now? Are you still in the same area?
Yeah. So I'm back at mom and dad's in a fifth wheel.
Didn't get too far then.
So I had built a house and I sold it a couple years ago. So now I'm building a new house or a new
Mm-hmm.
place. So yeah. So
Yeah.
instead of moving into mom and dad's, I'm living in a fifth wheel with my sister on their
Oh,
property.
okay. Yeah. By the way, Lois says that the whose girl are you question is trademarked, so I'll have to pay her royalties. I think later. She's got a podcast named that. I
I
believe
know
mine was first.
when you said that, I was like, I know
Yeah,
Lois and the
I know.
podcast of
I
that.
think I have video proof that mine was first, but I won't dispute it too much. Um, and Melissa Somro says hi, Andrea, and Gina coming in as well. Appreciate it,
Hi.
everybody. Um, so we're going to be talking more about your current career, which you've been doing for quite a while now. Um, but growing up, I think I probably met you like when we were teenagers. I'm
Probably.
sure, uh, way back in the day. And then you didn't just immediately jump into this career. Like you went to high school. Did you go to college at all?
I did not go to college.
Mm-hmm.
No college. So
And
um,
then what
I
did you
did
do right after?
right after I was working new construction cleaning.
Okay.
pretty typical for girls in the church back
Yeah.
then. If you weren't in an office, that's what you were doing.
Right.
And then I actually was working at Pogies. Do you remember Pogies in Battleground?
I
It was a
can't say I
sub
do.
shop. There's many
Okay.
many from the area that know of Pogies because it was the
Hmm.
best sub shop. Jersey Mike so does competition with it now, but
Okay.
so I worked there, and there was a newspaper ad back when we read newspapers that long ago. And so they were hiring for housekeepers and servers and different things like that. And so I actually applied in the spring of 2000 to get on as a housekeeper.
Okay.
I was like, well, I know how to clean, even though I had never done hotel cleaning, but I
Right.
cleaned mom and dad's house and I cleaned new houses. So that's what I got on as. It was a housekeeper. I didn't
Hmm.
actually end up getting on until like August or September 12th of that year.
Hmm.
So, and I was a housekeeper for 4 months and I hated it.
That wasn't for you.
I was homesick
Yeah.
and I hated it. Even though I was just right there on the river, I was still, it was something different and all my friends were at home and, I was a teenager. So, well,
Yeah.
I was 20, but
Yeah.
22,
Right
I
in there.
guess. But I
Yeah.
was like still with hanging out with all the kids, that were single still. So,
Yeah.
and here I was gone. So, Mindy Livioki had actually gotten a job first there. So she
Hmm.
helped me get back on when the spot opened up. But so then that next season, I became a deckhand. That's how I started. I became a deckhand because I was like, that's outside stuff. That's more what I'd like to do. Because before I had started working there, I had worked for dad a few different times, framing,
Hmm.
doing stuff outside, driving forklift and, all that type of stuff. Melissa
Yeah.
and I did that. We worked for my dad and we cut all the lumber because he would get raw packs because it was
Okay.
cheaper. We cut all the studs and trimmers and cripples and all that
Wow.
and loaded up. And she wasn't 18 yet, so she couldn't use the tools, the
Hmm.
mechanical tools. So I did, and I could drive the forklift. So that's what we did for like 6 months. I
Yeah.
will not say we were the best employees because we were not on time. But once we got there, we worked the whole day.
Yeah.
And now I
Classic.
have a really big problem with my crew if they're not on time because
I was gonna
be
say
late.
that won't fly, I'm sure, on the river.
No,
Yeah.
it does not fly. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's kind of so I had that interest. And so I got onto
Hmm.
deck and I really liked it. I actually had a chance to possibly go into the engineering side, but
Mm.
I was like, well, I like being outside. I like
Yeah.
that part of it. And as a deckhand, I got to steer the boat into a lock a couple times.
Okay.
That was scary and exciting all at the same time.
So how, like, tell me about your thoughts when that, like first off, the whole opportunity, coming up, and then like what were your thoughts as you went into it? Like, this was something that was more exciting to you? It was something out of the ordinary, but did it look like something you're like, this is like my career, or was it more like, oh, this is kind of more short term?
It was definitely more short term. It was a
Yeah.
job, but it was a fun job.
Yeah.
And I'd gotten to know, some of the other crew on there, and they were my age, and they were
Hmm.
doing that stuff. And I was like, well, if they can do it,
Yeah.
I can do that. That's one thing. That's one thing. My dad and his family, like, it doesn't matter who you are. You can do. I mean, obviously, there's some things physically I can't do, but
Sure.
anything else, I'm like, I'm just as capable as the next person. So,
Yeah.
um, so I was like, well, if this guy, he's a year younger than me, can do this, I can do this. When it came to driving the boat. Now
Right.
when I was a deckhand, I was fully monitored. I was
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
actually on my own, but I got to do some of it. So yeah, so that was probably the start of it. And so then I was like, I think I want to stay in this. And the
Hmm.
captain that was on there, he had made this comment towards the end of the year. He's like, whoever can name every channel, every range, every security call out on the Columbia and Snake River and gets their license can be the second mate next year. And I was like, well, that's me. I'm going to do that. And I did.
That's
I
achievable.
I
Yeah.
learned it, and I was already learning because I was interested. It was new.
Right.
It was exciting and fun to learn.
Yeah.
And so I did all of that, and I worked 1 year as a deckhand, and that next year that winter I applied for my first license, which ended up being a 100-ton master's license, which there's four tests that you have to do for that.
Okay.
So I went to, not necessarily a trade school, but it's a school that there was a gentleman that would help. He would teach you how to pass the test and where to find the information for all the different tests that you had to have. Now, my original license, I had to have 3 letters of recommendation also from licensed mariners. And so I had 3 letters of recommendation, and then I had to pass a chart test, which showed that I could navigate a chart and find my location and plots and different things like that.
What's a licensed mariner? Like what are they, captains, or are they like any?
They could be a captain or a mate or an engineer, actually.
So
you're licensed through the U.S. Coast Guard, but you are not in the U.S. Coast Guard.
I see.
You do sign a paper that says if they need you in a time of war, or you do check a box that says you're willing to go do that.
Interesting.
I think it's been many, many years since they've ever done that.
Sure.
But
that's interesting.
But yeah, so you do, swear solemnly that you'll do all that stuff. But it's mostly licenses are, you have mate's license, you have captain's license or master's license, and then there's engineering license. And engineering licenses range from the whole different ton of, it's rated differently. It's off the horsepower of an engine, or mine is off of the tonnage of the vessel. So they are a different license, but you can be dual licensed as well. You just have to spend enough time in both places. So
just so people can visualize, because you've been doing this for so many years that you just skip past terms that we won't really understand. Visualize for us like what a small boat tonnage is versus like a bigger, maybe like one of those that like carries logs down the river, versus like a big car carrier or something like what kind of tonnage are we talking in those ranges?
So the boat I started on, there's also a little bit more to it, because the United States has these loopholes.
Okay.
And when you build passenger vessels, if you have cargo doors in between spaces, you can shed weight, technically. So a bigger boat is rated at a lesser tonnage. So the boat I started on, the Queen of the West, was 92.3. Now I'm forgetting now. now I'm drawing a blank.
That's okay. Yeah. Just kind of in the range though. Yeah.
The international tonnage is 1,600 tons, but the domestic tonnage, which is U.S. tonnage, was 92.3 tons.
Okay. And I'm just, so people can see what the Queen of the West is, I'm going to go ahead and show this photo here.
Yeah. So that was rated at under 100 tons, even though it was almost double that.
Okay. So there's some wiggle room around there.
So the U.S., your tonnages can be kind of crazy. So, and I don't have a picture of it on here. But there's a boat, there's some small boats that go on the river, or even like the Portland Spirit, if you've ever seen that, or some of those small ferry boats. Those are technically more probably a real 100-ton rating. Okay. So they're smaller. They're about half the size of this.
Right.
So,
and what's like a big car carrier, like ocean-going car carrier?
Those would be a 10,000 ton.
Wow, so quite a bit bigger.
They're classified as unlimited.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So everything over 1,600 actually is classified as unlimited, and so that
really
is a very wide range.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, no kidding.
So
I don't know. Like there's a lot more. You were talking about the training. I don't want to interrupt you on that. So like the licensing and the training and all that.
So the licensing I had to do. So I had 4 tests that I had to do, and the first one of them is rules to the road, and so that's goes over like all the different light configurations on different vessels, passing arrangements, meeting arrangements, who has the right of way, who doesn't, when you have to sound different sounds, when you have to have different lights, how far away you have to be able to see those lights on certain vessels. They have to be bigger. Like, what does a sailboat have versus a motor vessel? And they can be definitely different depending on their size. And, you know, and when you get down to sailboats and pleasure craft, those get down to, you know, 20 feet and under, or 20 feet and longer, changes their light configurations.
Yeah.
So that, so the rules to the road is that type of information. And then it also has, let's see, fog signals in it. But the biggest thing is when you're testing for that, the Coast Guard uses a lot of maize and shells and stuff like that. So you're like, if it says may something, it might not be the same as if it says you shall do this.
Oh, interesting.
They like to use, there's some wordage there that if you read it the wrong way, you'll answer it wrong. So yeah.
So I assume this is somewhat related here, this graph.
A little bit. So yeah, those are different buoys. So the top left ones, those ones, the starboard, it says starboard junction. So you could have that in opposite colors and it would just be it'd be as port, or port junction buoys.
Right.
So those
starboard and port being left and starboard being right, if you're looking forward, right? Yeah.
Yep. So this junction buoys means that you can go either side, but that right there is showing you that the red side, so leaving it to your right if you're inbound, is the preferred side. But you could, there is a channel that is to the left of it, or to the right of it also.
Yeah.
And then like the bottom right ones, the green ones, that's your typical green light. Those are standard. Obviously the red ones would be red. The only difference in the red ones is you can see on the junction buoys, they got the pointed tops. So we call them nuns versus cans. The greens are called cans.
Cans and nuns.
Reds are called nuns because they have the on the top.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And the green, as you can see, looks like a can, a barrel or something.
Yeah.
Now the other ones that are on this picture, the reason I actually screenshotted this was because of the junction buoy, because there is the 3 different buoys on the river. You see those a lot.
Yeah.
The isolated danger buoys, there are a couple on the Columbia River, not too many. And then the cardinal aid buoys, that's the East Coast. So we don't have actually any of those out here. So
okay.
But,
I just wanted to pull that up because you were talking about having to know all of these things and that being part of the testing and whatnot, just kind of giving people an example of that.
Yeah. So then the other things that you test are nav general, which is kind of like a common sense test, honestly. If you look at it as you have to study it, you probably, like for myself, the first time I had a lot of things I needed to study to make sure that I knew what was the actual like common sense thing. But to tell you the honest truth, when I tested the second time, I failed it when I upgraded my license, because I was doing the practice test. And then when I went in and did it, I was like, I don't remember. And then when I got back to my class and I'm like, I don't know. And I'm reading, I'm like, these are common sense. I know these. Like, this is just something I do every single day.
Yeah.
So there's a nav general, which is a lot of, and that also can include like currents and tides. And so we have to know a little bit about that. Even on the inland, I still have to have that information and still test on that.
Okay. Yeah.
And then there's a deck general safety. And that is pulley systems and crane systems and the boat schematics, like what it's, you know, decks and ceilings and what crane operations there are. I'm like, we don't hardly use those. So I had to study that. And then wind and weather and, you know, I can look out at the water when we're cruising and I don't need to look at an anemometer because I can, if it's windy, I can give you a range just by looking at the water because I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, I suppose.
And so sometimes when we're driving up the river or up 84, I'll be like, oh, it's blowing blah, blah, blah. And Katie's like, such a nerd.
I
Like,
love
well,
that though. I love that
it
people
is.
get nerdy about their thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
So
the fourth test
uh
is charts, and I think
mhm.
I kind of went over that. It's just
Yeah, yeah.
doing the making sure you can do waypoints and different things like
Right.
that. Read a chart.
Yeah. Do you, I know with like airplanes, you have to get like checked out in particular models of planes and stuff like that. Do you have to do something similar for boats or ships?
You do not actually.
Mm,
I will say that sometimes I think it's kind of scary
mm,
because so I got my 100-ton master's license,
yeah.
which means technically I could have became the captain on board my first boat.
You were licensed to do
I
that.
was
Yeah.
licensed to.
Yeah.
And I chuckle about it. I'm like, because in reality, I was not qualified, not even close,
Yeah.
you
So then it's
know?
kind of up to the companies to make sure that you know what you're doing.
Yeah. So it really is up to the companies. And that's where the resumes come in to effect
Yeah.
and, and word of mouth and stuff. And that's where that comes in where, they
Yeah.
ask for time. And that's a lot of companies like won't hire somebody as a captain until they've been
Right.
either they've been a captain previously or they have so much time as a mate on board.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
so they do have their own safeguards in, but it's all learning on the job. There are you same or simulators. There are
Yeah.
simulators that you can go do, and
Yeah.
so there you can do that. I've done one, and I
Hmm.
did that one with when the propulsion changed. I did go to a simulator with a new propulsion.
Oh,
It was a lot of fun,
yeah.
but it's like you're not really doing it,
Right.
even though you are really doing it. But so it was the learning, but it's a little bit to wrap your brain around because there's like your brain still has this instinct of
Yeah.
safety.
Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So,
Exactly. That's
but it
very
is
interesting.
still it was a lot of fun to do. So
So going back to, you had said that your captain said apparently this was kind of an open invite to all the people working there, that hey, if you learn all of these markers and codes and whatever, um and you listed a few other requirements, I guess get the license, then you can be second mate. Is that what he said?
mhm.
So that's third in charge, because isn't there a first mate?
Yes, there
Okay.
is a first mate. Yes.
So that, yeah, that seems like a pretty good opportunity. So you went and did that. You just studied everything that you needed to know, came back and told them I can do this.
Yep. I got my license
Yeah.
and I was hired on as the relief second mate, which
Okay.
did 2 weeks of mate and 2 weeks of deckhand. And
Okay.
that's how that boat ran.
Okay.
I did a 4 week schedule on and 2 weeks off.
Okay.
But I did a couple days as deck,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up falling in the river.
Okay. How did that happen?
Because we had lost a hydraulic drive, and so we were hooking up to a towboat,
Mm-hmm.
and it was 12:30 or so in the morning, and I had just come on shift at midnight,
Mm-hmm.
and the towboat had just got there, so we were on the stern deck, and I was going to go across and cross over behind the paddle wheel. Well, we had just got done painting everything because it just come out of shipyard. So it was really, shiny and slippery, and it was wet, and it was raining, I think, and so I ended up falling off the back of the boat, and I
Did you
ended up
have a
landing.
life jacket on?
I had a life jacket on. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
My shin landed on the rudder, and I
Oh.
fell backwards, and then I came up, and I got myself back up on top of the rudder immediately.
Yeah.
And then a couple guys, small guys, not big guys,
Yeah.
literally pulled me, and I had a pea coat. So it was winter, it's February 28th.
Yeah.
I had pea coat on and a couple layers underneath that, and long johns and pants and shoes and this life vest. And when I got to the bathroom, the shower, to go shower,
Yeah.
when I was stripped out of everything, I had one dry spot on my arm, like right here. It was about this big. But they hauled me up out of the water there. But yeah,
Wow.
so then I ended up getting off the boat for a couple days, and the second mate that was there, then he had to go home, so I filled in for him. Well, he never came back, and it was just like this torpedo of things, and it just ended up even though I didn't get the full-time spot for about 2 months,
Yeah.
I still ended up never working as a deckhand again until I wanted to.
Wow.
So
And this was all on the Queen of the West.
that was on the Queen of the West. Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about the Queen of the West? Because that's a famous boat around here. Like we've seen it up and down since I was a kid.
Yep. So the Queen of the West was built in 1995.
Okay.
And it was built up in Nichols Brothers on Woodby Island up in Seattle.
Okay.
And then they towed it down here. And it was originally built. So I got on it in 2000. It was started running in 95.
Mm-hmm.
It was originally built to be 100% paddle wheel, and it was going to have pitman arms. Well, that didn't.
What are pitman arms?
So pitman arms are levers that they have hydraulic arms that would hook to the center of the wheel, and they actually do this like back and forth, and the motion of it actually makes it turn.
Okay. And of course, we're talking about this wheel back here.
Yep. So it was supposed to be, pitman arm 100% driven by those. And of course because of that, it has rudders also behind and in front of the paddle wheel.
Okay.
Well, that didn't work. So then that winter, they converted it into hydraulically driven paddle wheel with the same paddle wheel that's on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, so then they didn't have the pitman arms, so they had a little more space. So they had a place for their trash to go. But, so they ended up, it was all hydraulic. So it had 800 gallons of hydraulic fluid.
Oh, wow.
And they used highly refined vegetable oil so that if there was a spill, it would not be an issue on the. Yeah, it was not environmental. So, and when I got on it, it had MTUs on it. They converted it the next year to Cummins, I think.
Okay. MTUs as in like
as engines, what powered.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What power to be able to push the hydraulic to make it make the paddle wheel run. Mm-hmm. And then it had two different generators on it. It had two generators, and the generators could parallel, and that was for the power of the vessel for lights and all that. But so it was 100% paddle wheel driven until 2011.
I didn't know that. I always thought that it like had propellers underneath it and that this was just for show. But I mean, literally when I was a kid watching it go up and down the river, I thought that was just for show. I didn't think it was actually pushing.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Nope. That 100% worked in that picture. Yeah. That is what pushes it up and down the river. Yeah. In 2011, ACL bought the boat in 2010. American Cruise Lines, and so they actually converted it in the winter of 2010-11, and that's actually the very first year, I think. So that's in 95. So they had it all decked out, all fancy.
Oh yeah.
But I don't actually have a picture of it since ACL. Well, I have a picture, but I didn't send one.
I should also ask, what's the purpose of the boat? Like, why do people go on it? Is it it's just a cruise up and down the river type of boat?
So it cruises up and down the river, but it stops at different ports. And so you're getting to learn history. A lot of the Columbia River cruises, they teach about Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark obviously is huge. This was the end of their journey. So the boat goes to Clarkson, Washington, which is a stop. I think that Lewis and Clark were in Clarkson. Maybe not, but that might just be an added stop because it goes through They go to Hell's Canyon on the jet boats.
Okay.
And then it stops obviously in Tri-Cities, where Sacagawea State Park, and that was a big stop. This picture right here is actually at Klickitat, which is the Washington side of the Dalles, just above the lock.
Yeah.
So they used to stop there. Now they actually can dock in downtown the Dalles.
Okay.
And then they go to Stevenson, and from Stevenson, you get to see Montalona Falls and Bonneville Dam. And then we stopped in Longview for years, and then it changed to Rainier, and now they go to Kalama because Longview and Rainier don't have any place for us to go anymore.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they go to Kalama, and they go to Mount St. Helens from Kalama. Okay. And then Astoria is the finish line for, Lewis and Clark. Plus there's, you're at the beach and there's different things there too. So basically it's a 7-day trip where you get to learn a lot of history.
Yeah.
see a lot of cool places that you've learned about probably in history books and in school. And then, I mean, the scenery there's not too many places comparable.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because of the
Yeah,
change of scenery you get to see. I mean,
absolutely.
even when I started on boats, I didn't realize the eastern side of the Washington was desert.
Yeah. High
I
desert.
didn't,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, I had no idea. And I'm like, how did I not know that? We've driven through here multiple times, but it was always at night.
Yeah.
If we went on
Sure.
a vacation somewhere east, we left at like, late.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we all did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, I didn't realize that. So,
Is it just one way? It's just downriver?
um, so when this was running at this time, it was round trip. And so
Okay.
they were underway, other than being in port for about 8 hours a day, they were underway nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
Now most of the boats do it one way. And
Okay.
so they do a lot of overnight in the at the docks and stuff like that
I
too.
see. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
very interesting. We'll go over more photos here in just a second, but um, what uh, what led to you becoming a captain then, and what years are we talking about here?
So 2002, I became a second mate.
Mm-hmm.
And I was second mate for 2 years, and then I moved into the chief mate spot. So I was second in command then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was a lot of learning and a lot of training. And I ended up going to advanced firefighting and doing things like that because it just like I was in charge of a fire team now.
Oh wow,
As a chief mate, if there's a fire on board, we are
you're the fire
until
department. Yeah,
until we're to ashore, we're doing it on board. So
right.
so I got to do some extra studying and learning for that, and did some different classes. I actually went up to North Bend and did a train the trainer, which was a 2 week course, and it was super detailed, and it was a lot of fun. And it literally when the boat shut down in 2008, I was like, maybe I should go into firefighting.
That's interesting.
But if you would have asked me the first 5 years of me being a mate, if I was ever going to be captain, I would have laughed at you. I was like,
Really?
absolutely not.
Why is that?
I was just doing it for a job.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
with our background, I'm like, I'm sure I'll be married before I'm 30.
Sure.
Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah, and it might be tough with a family with the hours that you're talking about, like on the river.
yeah, you're gone for days at a time. It's not
Yeah, yeah. It's
there
not just
there
hours,
are
it's
some
days.
jobs that
Yeah,
are day boat, and
right.
so it's you're home every day, but
Mm-hmm.
most of it is you're gone. So
It's like almost like a long haul truck driver type of a thing.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Unfortunately, from everyone that I know, there's only one or two captains in my entire career that I've met that aren't divorced.
Oh wow. Yeah,
So
just really
that's
hard on families. Yeah.
very hard on families. So,
Yeah,
and
no
then when
kidding.
you're in passenger vessels, it's even worse because you got guys and girls, and you've got all ranges of people. So it just
Yeah.
honestly can invite some not great stuff. So
Yeah, I can imagine that would be part of it.
yeah.
Well, so okay, then at some point you must have changed your mind though.
So I did in 2007. The opportunity was going to be coming up that I actually was going to be captain in 2006. And I got told on April Fool's Day that that was not going to happen because our sister ship, the boat have been on for the last 10 years, had ran aground. And so the company changed their policy that you had to be a captain previously, or you had to have 5 years of mate experience.
Is that the American Express?
American Empress. It was,
or sorry,
but it was known as
Empress.
the Empress of the North.
I misread that. It's a little small in this picture. Yes, American Empress. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll pull up a picture of that one.
Yeah, and it was known as the Empress of the North back then.
Okay, gotcha.
But this was taken just this last year, so yeah.
Okay, and this is so. Have you just been on these two boats?
For the majority of it, these are the two main boats that I've been on. But yeah, I've been on a couple other ones, but these two are the big ones.
Yeah, gotcha.
The most amount of years. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So keep going then on that journey toward captain.
So I actually became a navigational training officer is what they gave my title, since they were taking captain away, but they didn't want to demote me completely.
Right.
because we just went through startup, and done all the training with all the crew. All the crew knew I was supposed to be the relief captain. So, I ended up doing that, which is when I actually got to go on the Empress. And I actually got to go to Alaska, and I got to go on the Mississippi and see the American Queen out there, and see a few different boats in a few different places. So it kind of turned into kind of a fun couple years.
Yeah.
And then 2008 is when I actually became captain for the first time for real.
Yeah.
Other than for a week covering. So 2008, I became captain and became the counterpart captain with my main first captain. So he had pretty much taught me, everything that I knew about 100% paddle wheel driven, hydraulically driven paddle wheels that have pressure systems. And is not the easiest boat to drive, but it was a lot of fun.
I imagine.
And I became really good at it. And there's we would get unlimited captains and masters, come on the boat for training and maybe gonna take a job, and they'd leave after a week. They're like, you guys are crazy. This boat is hard to drive. And me, I'm like, what do you mean hard to drive? At that time, it was the only boat I had driven.
Yeah.
So I didn't know any better. And I was like, this is easy. I can't imagine driving anything else, because I had no idea how any of those worked. So, but yeah, so
by the way,
I was captain for a year.
Roman Sepula says, I think the company I work for, Charlie's Produce, delivers to your boat up and down the river.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
They did. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we should probably also mention, because it actually did come out publicly pretty recent, like a few hours ago, that I don't know about the timing here somehow, but the one time I decided that we're gonna interview you, your company actually shuts down. It's shutting down, or it has shut down.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
There's only a handful of us that still have a job, and I have an end date also.
Yeah.
I just don't know if my end date is March 17th or April 20th yet.
Oh, okay. Some confusion there.
But I do have an end date. I'm supposed to get on the boat in March and cover. I was supposed to get on and cover for a couple of weeks of doing some, just to be there and watch the boat. And so I don't know. My HR is working on it, but yes, I do have an end date. But the company is shut down, and 95% of the employees are no longer employed. So
that's unfortunate, because you've worked for that company for how many years?
10 years. I had just hit my 10-year mark, January 31st.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to go too far into, because we want to look at more photos. We want to talk a little bit more about some of the incidents you've had and interesting things. But like, is this something you saw coming, or like, was it the company on shaky ground, or kind of what was the deal there?
Definitely on the radar. My hope was, and I knew that they were looking at getting someone to buy it. Yeah, I knew it needed to be sold. Yeah. Someone else needed to take over, because a lot of times with companies and boats like this, if they sell to a bigger overhead company that's a parent company but has multiple different divisions, sometimes things don't work out the way they should, or they don't want to give as much to this company versus that one. Like, because Hornblower has a lot of small day boats, dinner cruises all through the United States, and actually all over the world. And those are a little more lucrative, and your employee pay is more like an hourly pay, and you're not paying per day, and it's different, and the cost is different. And if a boat doesn't run for a couple of days, it's not a big deal. They probably have another one there that they can put everyone on. Or if there's a Coast Guard thing that comes up, whether it's a certification thing or something, inspection thing, it doesn't matter if they're down for 2 days, then they just pick up and go. Well, when they took over for the overnight group, I started seeing problems a long time ago, but I just figured that, like every other time, they would know, and it would sell, and owners, new owners and stuff like that. Well, That didn't happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It is still in the works, as far as I know. It's going to auction in a month,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah.
so someone's hoping to get it for pennies on the dollar, and
Yeah.
hopefully then it will start running again. But even at this point, it won't run. It won't run this year.
Mm, yeah.
So no matter what, but I could see that it could potentially come, but I really did actually believe, because of past experiences, that it would actually have sold by now, and
Right. Yeah.
it would have new ownership.
Yeah. No
So
kidding.
it's very disappointing because
Yeah.
there was a big group of people coming on after conventions, and I was going to be on and
Yeah.
get to captain and show them the river. So it's actually a little sad.
Yeah. No kidding.
So
Yeah.
I was looking forward to that, but
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll get another chance. If they don't start back up, are there other, you know, like with your experience, you've done this for many years now. I'm sure there's lots of different avenues you could go in terms of captaining or being involved with uh with boats. Like what would be other options?
So the other options are, and I've had a couple people actually reach out already. So
Mm-hmm.
one of them is a tug company, or a couple of them
Okay.
are tug companies that I'm like, and one of them I've seriously over the years looked at, but
Mm-hmm.
I've had a pretty good gig here, and I kind of
Yeah.
get to make my own schedule. Where there, I don't get. I mean,
Right.
I have a set schedule, but here I'm like, I've had it pretty good. That I
Yeah.
can, if I need a
Yeah.
week off randomly in the middle of the year and want to change things up, as long as
Right.
my counterpart will do it, it's fine. I can do it.
That's nice. Yeah.
Everyone laughs at me, because I have 100 million weddings to go to all the time.
Oh, sure.
So,
Another wedding. Yeah.
yeah,
As if,
I know. They're
like,
like, how many weddings do you go
yeah. Yeah. You're like,
to?
you don't understand.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to all of them.
I know. I'm like, you have no idea.
Right. Exactly.
But so
Yeah. No, that makes
I would
sense.
like to do. I've been interested in the tow for a long time, just
Mm-hmm.
because it's a little more for sure stable. I
Yeah.
mean, the tugboats don't usually shut down, and they've got to move product up and down the river.
Right. Right. And there's a
They
lot more of them.
yeah, and
So
there's a lot more of them. So
more options.
they
Yeah.
they shut down going upriver for 2 months in March every year because the lock's
Mm-hmm.
all closed, but they don't. That's it. So
So one thing I'm confused on, and maybe it's a simple answer for you, but like ocean going ships, when they come in, they have to have like a river pilot come in
mhm.
and like take over the ship while they're in the river. But you don't have to have that because you're just always in the river. So
Correct.
why is that? Is it just a tonnage thing or what's the deal?
Some of it's tonnage.
Mm-hmm.
So U.S. flagged vessels,
Mm-hmm.
it is more based on tonnage and the
Okay.
cargo that they would be carrying, of why
Mm-hmm.
they would need to have a pilot
Mm.
on board. But smaller vessel or anything foreign, for sure.
Oh,
Foreign
okay.
vessels 100% have to have a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
U.S. flagged vessels, it's typically has to do with tonnage, and then it has to do with maybe the cargo that they're carrying
Okay. Makes
and
sense.
familiarity of the route. Some
Mm.
companies will do it for insurance purposes. Some U.S. flagged vessels will do it for insurance purposes,
Oh,
for familiarity of the route.
so
So
maybe it's not required by law, but they want to do it anyway just to be
yeah,
careful
some of them would.
and
But
reduce their
because I
liability.
have a U.S. license, flagged U.S., and I'm inland only, and
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
I
just what
have
you
that in
do.
my favor.
Yeah, you're going up and down the river. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Let's look at some photos here. I know there's more we can talk about, but I want to get through these photos as well. So just tell me, I know they're not in a particular order, but just tell me a brief bit about each one of these.
So that was my very first picture taken as an officer. I was a second mate, just
Mm-hmm.
started in my first year. So that was my first official
That's pretty cool.
uniform picture.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And they would put it on display.
Oh yeah.
So that's a buoy on the Snake River, actually.
Okay.
It's a new style of buoy, and it's because they get a lot of really strong current in the spring with the spring runoff. And so they're trying it out. And I had taken a picture of it, and I just happened to find it when I was going through. So it's actually a nun, technically,
Okay.
because it's not lit. There's no light on it.
Oh, okay.
So it's classified as a nun.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it would be a buoy,
Okay.
technically, if it has
Okay.
a light on it. So
Gotcha. We already saw the
yeah,
American
American
Empress.
Empress. That was last year, right before we started.
Mm-hmm. How many people on the American Empress? Like
The
if you
American
full.
Empress can hold 220 passengers and
Okay.
84 crew.
84 crew. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's quite an operation. Is it usually 84?
We have anywhere from 75 to 84 usually. If
Whoa.
we're a full boat, we need every one of those 84. If it's not full, you don't need quite as much.
Yeah.
Get away with
That's
it.
quite an operation then that you're in charge of.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about that? Like I've got that big of a crew. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I have a question
Yes.
for you then. Like how like before do you get everybody together and like, hey, this is what we're like a briefing, or does everybody just kind of know what to do, or how does that work?
We have briefings. I mean, in the beginning, you do a lot of training and
Yeah.
one-on-one training, and then you have managers. Housekeeping manager, a
Yeah.
food and beverage manager, the executive chef, the chief engineer. Obviously captain and chief mate.
Mm-hmm.
You've got pursers, which are essentially not receptionists, but like the
Yeah.
bookkeeper side of it.
Right.
You have a hotel manager that's in charge of all of the hotel side of operations. So all those heads, a
Mm-hmm.
cruise director and entertainment. They're in charge of entertainment. And so there's like 8 different um, groups in there. So
What's wild to me is that you are basically in charge of like a boat, a hotel, a restaurant, a tour service, apparently a fire department. Like it's like everything all in one thing.
so technically I'm in charge of hotel a little tiny bit, but not
Yeah.
really the hotel operations side. But I
Okay.
am
Yeah.
in charge of the entire crew when it comes to anything that is safety training.
Safety. Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
fire, abandoned ship, man overboard, any of that,
Yeah.
flooding, any of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of power there because you're the captain, you're in charge. Yeah, that makes sense. What do we
I
have here?
realized I should have sent you a picture of I have
Oh,
a picture somewhere, and I don't know where it's at, of the Queen of the West and the Empress next to each other. So you could, because from these pictures, you can't see the
oh,
size difference.
yeah, yeah.
Because the Queen of the West was 1,600 ton ITC
Right.
tonnage, which is international tonnage. And this one is 5,975.
Wow.
So it's 3 times the amount, or almost
Yeah.
going
Well,
more than
maybe
that, but
maybe you can
almost.
post a picture in the comments like afterward, and people can check that
Okay.
out if
Yeah, I'll
they
see if
if
I
they
can
can.
find it.
Yeah.
So that's in dry dock. We'd just gotten dry is what what
Mm-hmm.
we technically call it, is after the water boat or the lift had just gotten us out of the water. And so those blocks are what we sit on, and they have a map
Mm-hmm.
of our boat and where all of our ribs and longitudinal lines are, so that they know where to place them for weight distribution.
Yeah.
And they set it all up. They bring the dry dock out of the water. They set all those up, and then we back in, and they have exact placement for us. And then they cable us in, and then they start lifting us, and then we land on those.
And typically, you go into dry dock for what reasons?
Every 5 years, we have inland waters. If you're in freshwater, which is inland water, typically most inland waters, it's every 5 years, and it's
Mm-hmm.
to clean all the sludge that you can see on the bottom there. There's algae, and so they clean all that up. If you are in salt water, you have to go every 2 years, and
Mm,
they probably have barnacles and different things like that too that they're
I
cleaning.
see. Salt water's a lot harder on it than.
Yes, a lot
Yeah,
harder.
that makes sense. Um, by the way, Linda Werkel asks if anyone has ever fallen overboard. I assume other than you recounted that story, but have you had overboard people
I
overboard?
have.
Mm-hmm.
And it unfortunately did not turn out great.
Is
We ended
that
up
right?
overboard in Rainier. So
No way.
yeah, that one was a 1:07 in the morning. My door was being knocked on very hardly.
Yeah.
We did a search for him, and the Coast Guard came up, and they searched for him for 3.5, 4 hours.
Yeah.
And they ended up finding him a week later, and he was 9 miles downriver. where they found him.
Wow.
So, and that was in the summer, so the water was warm.
Yeah.
But he was from the south, and he couldn't. I don't think he could swim, but he was also, there was like 5 or 6 rules that he did not follow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I told my crew that, I said, if one of you would have broke the chain of events and told somebody, this could have been prevented, hopefully. You know, he was out, he quit, left work early, he went out to the bar, he came back late, but signed in. He said he came back on time, but he didn't.
Yeah.
He was up past curfew in the crew or passenger space.
Oh, so he was crew?
Yeah, he was a crew member.
I see.
And so then, we weren't, so with American Cruise Lines, you're not allowed to smoke on board as a crew member. So he went back to the stern deck to hide to smoke.
Oh.
And the paddle wheel that they have on her now, because the paddle wheel that's on her now is fake. It doesn't work. It just spins freely.
Yeah.
It just looks like it. So he went back there. Well, then he had to pee. And he went to stand up by the paddle wheel. Well, the current there runs, as you know, you lived in that area.
Right.
The current runs really hard there when it's going out.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't take much for that paddle wheel to start spinning when it's free spinning. And he lost his balance, from what the other guys said.
Yeah.
And he fell into the water and then
couldn't find him. Yeah. Yeah, so, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then didn't have a life jacket on.
Yeah, because he wasn't supposed to be back there anyways. He was hiding out.
Right. Yeah.
So totally. It was one of those things. I'm like, I could list like 5 things off the top of my head. I was like, if just one person would have broken this chain of events. So but so that one sucked. There's not,
What about passengers? Have you had any passengers go over?
No passengers.
That's good.
I know that the Empress, when it was Empress of the North, they had somebody fall at the gangway, but they were able to get her out safely. So
okay.
But so no passengers. I've been part of, so I've had man overboards. I've had fires.
Yeah. I was going to ask about the fires. Yeah. If you
major fires. And
really? Okay.
I haven't been on board for a grounding that required abandoned ship. I actually haven't been on board for a grounding other than a purposeful grounding, but
okay.
Yeah. So
yeah. There's all that stuff like running aground and whatnot. Like, that's a big deal if it happens.
It is a big deal. So,
so this looks like a lock.
This is actually the dry dock.
Oh, it's the dry dock. Okay.
This is the dry dock. So this is when we were coming in before they started emptying out. You can see the cable that's going across there, right?
Yeah.
In the middle of the boat. That's one of the cables. So this was backing into their biggest dry dock they have. This dry dock, when we were in it, we looked like tiny small fry because they put the biggest ships in this particular dry dock.
Interesting. Okay.
So, but that was one that was available.
Where is this located?
So that's in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, okay.
That's Vigor Shipyard.
Gotcha. And
there she's all pretty and ready to get wet again.
Wow, that is quite a difference when you look at like this.
Yep.
Versus that.
Yeah. I think I actually have another picture in there of the before of this particular shot, just because it was like that way you could see it. But
yeah, I'll have to find that wherever.
So this picture, so this is what we call a bow thruster, but it's a jet pump, and that turns 360 degrees. So that helps move the boat around, the bow of the vessel around if you need to.
That is really useful because if you don't have that, you have to try to do it all with your rudder and your steering wheel or whatever you have for propulsion in the back, and that's a very different task.
Well, and you gotta, I mean, it's a different way of driving the boat when you don't have one of those, for sure.
Yeah.
So
is it only when docking and undock, like, you don't use it like when you're just driving?
Not normal cruising.
By the way, you call it cruising, right?
What's that?
You call it cruising, not driving, right? Like,
I say driving too. But
okay. All right.
I try to drive the boat like I don't have it, so that if for some reason I don't have it, it will still work.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But there are times when then you're out there in the pouring down rain, or it's just cold out. Some more so when it's just cold, and I'm just like, I'm not doing this slowly. I'm just gonna use this and get it.
That makes sense. Yeah. By the way, is this those like zinc blocks or whatever they're
Yep.
called? I read about these. I used to read a lot of like naval, like military history and whatever. And let me try to remember what it is, and then you correct me. But I think that these things help prevent like some sort of metal electrical corrosion. Is that right?
There's that, and also if those things wear, yes, basically, and if they
Okay.
wear out, then your hull could be in some serious issue.
Yeah, because this is where the electrical, there's some sort of electrolysis or something that happens,
Yeah,
and it
and
goes here first.
there's zinc ioids, I think is the
Yeah.
proper name for it. So.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, very interesting. Yep. I just noticed that, and I was like, I think I know what that is. Okay, here's another view.
So that's looking from the stern. So you can see the Z drives. So this boat is, the Z drives are the main propulsion. The paddle wheel does work. Gives it a few miles an hour. It doesn't do a lot.
Oh, is that right? Okay. So, but if you lost these, you could use that to kind of limp along.
You could use it to very slowly get somewhere. Without the Z drives, it gives you about 3.5 miles an hour.
Why is it called a Z drive?
Yeah, so Z drive is a propeller that turns, and so you can kind of see the zinc ioids around the base of it right there.
Oh, right, yeah.
At the top there, yeah, right there.
Yep.
So that it spins right there, 360 degrees.
Okay.
So azimuth drive is the proper name.
Oh, okay.
We call it Z drives because it's short for it. So, but an azimuth drive is a drive that turns 360, and there's a couple different kinds. This one is actually a cushion comfort one, which makes it a smoother, not as rough. It's not so jerky because it doesn't just instantly give power to one direction or another. Because it's losing power as the water leaves the blades, where the other type is a quart nozzle style. And so then it's almost like a jet pump. So my old boat, the Queen of the West, when they converted it to Z drive, they put quart nozzles on it. And that boat, I could barely put the thing in gear and it was jumping because they're so powerful for that boat. This boat's so heavy.
Yeah.
But it takes a long time.
And it has the smoother.
Yeah. And then those they're powerful. The boat will keep, you don't leave it on for too long, otherwise you're not going to be able to stop it. But
wow.
Definitely. Or the dock will be stopping it if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
That's interesting. Well, that gives you a lot more maneuverability. Plus, with the bow thrusters, you can
and those
put it somewhere.
If you transition them properly, you can actually move the bow and the stern using just the Z drives.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it'll kind of pivot in the middle or wherever. Yeah,
it's something to do with the current of like how it's pushing the water. And when I went to my simulator class, the way I did it on the towboat, which was only in my simulator was only like 72 feet long. It is not how you do it on a 300-foot long ship, but it's really close. You just have to adjust where your angle is just a little bit, and it's are you pretty much the I don't know if you call it the helmsman or whatever, when you're on duty, or is there someone else at the helm? So with this company that I was just with, we had a 2-man bridge. So we always had another mate up there. We had one of the first or second mate, and then either myself, and then my backwatch, we call it a pilot on board, not the river pilots, but that was a terminology. And so either they were up there or I was up there, and that person was trained up and had extra, like they were signed off to be able to do all the locking and docking and stuff without.
I see. Okay.
Now, gotcha. They still had to call with certain weather situations, and still they would still call the captain. It wasn't on just them.
Yeah.
But
gotcha.
so they would call. So we would always have 2 people up there. So whether it was myself steering or the mate steering, it could be
Mm-hmm.
either. I
Okay.
enjoy steering the boat. I enjoy doing that. So I could sit on the helm the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's not really fair to the mates.
If they want to
And
take a
then
turn. Yeah.
yeah, when I worked for ACL, they actually required the deckhands to be helmsmen, so the deckhands would steer the boat, but
Oh,
I
is that
would
right?
con it
So
more
you'd
so
be up
than
there giving orders on what to
yep,
do. That's more
yep,
like what I've read about with like destroyers and stuff. They'll have
yeah.
someone,
That's more
yeah,
naval for sure. And that
naval.
was
Yeah, yeah.
the original owner. That was he really liked that. So that's
Hmm.
and I fought it at first because I came from a single man bridge.
Yeah. Okay.
Originally, it was at night we'd have a deckhand up there for a watchman, but during the day you were up there by yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean I'm not the one steering? And I'm going to tell some deckhand how to steer. And I learned that you can do it. It's not, and actually, I think it's good training for a person.
I suppose. Yeah.
Makes you more aware of what's going on
Right.
instead
Yeah, and
of
there's some benefit in terms of just being more free to kind of look at different things and not have to constantly be. Yeah,
yeah,
this is just what I'm assuming, but yeah, I
exactly.
I know I read this is a little bit of a side thing, but I read this one famous World War II book about a submarine, um, where it's a little different, but usually on a submarine in World War II, the captain would look through the periscope, like he would look through, and he would read off bearings and distance and whatever to their enemies or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to have the first mate do that, and I'm going to be looking at the plot and the maps and have the first mate do all of that stuff. And it was a really weird thing because like nobody did it that way.
Yeah.
The captain always looked through the scope, but he took a back seat because he wanted to have more situational awareness, not just get stuck on the scope like on what's happening there instead of what's happening in the boat. So yeah, that is more of a naval thing. Obviously, that's a different situation where you have people shooting at you, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but it's
interesting.
that's exactly what it is. And that
Yeah,
was what Charlie Robertson, he was my old boss. That's exactly, I was like, what? I don't even.
yeah,
But once I started doing it, I was like, oh,
yeah,
wow. It really is like, you don't like even, I mean, yeah, there was times I would step in and I would,
yeah,
and be like, I got it because of
yeah.
whatever need. But
Sure.
there's a lot of things that I have some crew that get frustrated at me because I'll let somebody drive through an area like coming up through Bonneville, coming up
Yeah.
below Bonneville through what it's called the push, the
Okay.
5 miles below Bonneville Dam. It's narrow. There's strong current there. It's shallow. Like you don't go outside the channel there. And then in the spring runoff, you have a little room to go outside the channel because you
Yeah.
want to be outside the channel because it's not as strong a current there. And because it's 20 feet deeper, that it's safe to go out there.
Yeah.
And but I'll let the other mates and stuff, even the second mates that don't have the experience, and
Hmm.
I'll let a deckhand or an AB, and I have one of my crew that he's like, why are you letting these people? You're not even. And I'm like, what? I'm very aware what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. You're there. You're
I'm
watching.
not going to let them do something they shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty neat, though. I bet they love
So,
that.
so yeah.
So this is up on the. Do you call it a bridge?
Yep, I call it a bridge or pilot house is
Pilot house. Yep.
the two terms that I use the most.
Mm-hmm.
This one doesn't have a wheel in it, so I don't typically ever call this a wheelhouse.
Okay.
Because this is part of the Empress Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see the radar screen, and then to the right, you can see that's the chart plotter. So that is up by Messner, Blaylocks, Boardman, if you're on
Okay.
84.
Yep.
So the river goes,
That's beautiful out there.
on the Oregon side, and then you're heading up north. Well, I guess it's the whole river it's in the middle. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just before Aragon. Do you know where that's at? That's
I don't.
by Boardman too. So
Okay. Yeah. I know where Boardman is. So yeah.
yeah, on the river there. So Aragon is actually a grain elevator port. So
Okay.
it's below McNairy.
What? Just out of curiosity, you got the river here, and then you have are these two channels, or what are they? The white.
So that's the channel right there that you were just at, and
right here. Yep.
Yep. And then the other one is the old channel.
Oh, there's two?
It well, not technically, but
Yeah.
that is before the dams and things like that.
Oh,
That is another channel that they did do over
I
there.
see. Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah.
If you were
And
an
then
old school towboat captain, you might go that way because you might know something, but I wouldn't go that way.
wow, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
What is this radar? What is this?
That is radar.
Okay.
And so when you look at the chart plotter screens, you see that it's a split screen.
Yeah.
The left side, which has the light white and the light blue, that's in a heads up position.
Yep.
And then the right one is in north up.
North up. Okay, so you can look at this and see where you're
Yeah.
headed, and then this one's just kind of an overview, and then
Yep. And
this is
then
of
that
course
one is in heads up also. So it
heads
actually
up
matches the
right here.
yes, that right
Yeah.
there. So and
And
I personally prefer north up because
yeah.
that's what I learned the river on.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
So, because my first GPS screen was only a 5-inch screen
Okay.
and it was black and white. And so you can see that this is high tech right here.
Yeah, right.
So, and it was only in north up, but my radar was still in heads up. So my brain does that conversion really easy.
yeah.
And if I'm going into a really tight space or something like that, I want my chart plotter zoomed in on north up. And
Yeah.
people are like, well, why not just, and I'm like, I can't read that other screen. I have no idea what's going on. But if
Right.
I'm in north up, I know where the boat is in the river. I
Right.
know what direction it's turning. So it's a crazy, and I know that over time I could probably learn to do the other one, but since I don't have to, I don't force myself to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Arvo Ornama has a few questions here. So one question is, have you ever had a disorderly passengers, and what do you do if you have that problem?
Yes. I've had a few different types of disorderly passengers. Typically, if it's just someone being mouthy or if it's someone being disrespectful to crew, because we have a lot of Black and Asian crew.
Mhm.
So our crew is all different cultures.
Mhm.
So once in a while, not as much anymore, but years ago, you would get some pretty racist, unfortunately.
Mm.
And they would be really rude to some of our crew. So I would typically go talk to them. Usually, if Four Stripes comes and talks to them, they very quickly change their ways.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is more as unruly is typically because of alcohol, and so
Yeah.
usually even that. If I go talk to them, then usually they're usually embarrassed, and so they'll stop. We've had some other like completely off the rails, inappropriate, and I've actually called the cops and had them escorted off.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So, but yeah.
He had another question. How far down into the water does your boat hull reach? And I think that you call that draft, right?
Correct. That is draft. So the Empress of the North or American Empress is 12'6" typically, but we can ballast. So that means that we can sink the boat. We can put water into holding tanks. So we can change the draft. We typically would run anywhere between 12 and 12'6", but you can ballast all the way down to a 13'6" if need be. So.
Just to make it more steady or something like that, or
yeah, well, there's a bridge on the Snake River, so
to kind of duck under bridges. Okay.
Yeah, the air draft on the Empress is with all the stacks and all the flagpoles and the masts put down is 52 feet to the top of the lighthouse.
Yep.
And there's a bridge. It's called the Two Cannon Bridge. It's by the Palouse River. Palouse Falls is really pretty if you ever have an opportunity on the east side of Washington to go to. It's really cool to see. But the Two Cannon Bridge is a train bridge that goes over the Snake River just below Little Goose Lock, and it's got a minimum clearance of 52 feet.
Okay, so you have to duck down as far as you can. Yeah.
So most of the time they have the river stage a little bit lower, so it's not a problem. But once in a while, it's not. I'm gonna turn my overhead light on because I just realized I didn't have it on, and it's
feel free. I'm gonna go to the next photo here as well, which looks like it's another dry dock here.
Yeah, that was the start of the dry dock.
Yeah.
So you can see they're pressure washing the bottom of the boat. They're starting to pressure wash her. That's what those two men, whatever band lifts are doing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, very cool. Also, Arvo had asked, have you ever been called to dock your vessel while on the river due to a sudden storm or other reasons?
We have turned around and not went to a port because of that.
Mm.
But I haven't typically docked it because of it. It's usually we would stay in port if need be.
Yeah.
Years ago when I was a mate on the
Mm-hmm.
Queen of the West, we were ahead of schedule, so I was going slow on the John Day Pool, and we were inbound, so we were heading towards Tri-Cities, and this storm came up behind us, 60-mile-an-hour winds, and I was going slow, and it was just rudder back then, so I was going slow, and I was just at the right angle that I was fine, and then the river took a slight curve, or my channel took a slight curve. So I went to turn. Well, the wind caught me and it literally blew me sideways, turned me sideways instantly, laid the boat, like leaned way over. So I'll say that was, that's
Yeah.
probably been the biggest one. So we ended up turning around, like continued the turn and headed into the wind because it's a lot easier to control and you can still go slow into the wind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, but mostly we haven't went to Astoria because of storms. That's
Yeah.
it.
This looks like you're doing something fire related.
So we to get our deckhands to be more motivated to be better,
Mm-hmm.
we did what's called the Deckhand Olympics.
Okay.
And I haven't been a deckhand in a very, very, very long time. But I was like, I'll do it. I'll
Uh-huh.
show you guys.
Yeah.
And I put this picture in here only because other than I came in second place.
Wow.
And I did come into second place to a deckhand. Actually, I think it's a deckhand that you can see in the background in that picture, funny enough.
Yeah.
And he beat me by 20 seconds. And I'm like,
Okay.
if I would have known the clock, I would have pushed her.
That's pretty impressive. I bet you
Yeah.
gained a little bit of street cred there after
I
beating
did.
everybody.
It definitely did. It was one of those things that I'm like, I
Yeah.
can still do it. And I haven't, so this is a 3-inch fire hose.
Yeah.
And the start of it is you had to, when you started it, you could have it all set up. This is me coming back up the stairs and I'm almost to the 4th deck. I have one run of stairs left.
Yeah.
And that was exhausting, but had to carry that all the way down, hook it up, put a nozzle on it, put fire gear on, and then we had to throw lines and answer questions and do a few different things. And then we had to haul that back upstairs. And that's
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
By the way, well, actually, I'm going to hold that question. Let's get through the rest of the photos here. So here's another photo of you.
That's 2014. That was
4 stripes.
4
Mhm.
stripes. Yeah.
Yep. On the shoulder there. Yeah. Very cool. And then
this is at Iragon actually, and this was just this last year.
Okay.
So that was the Empress, and we were pushed in there we had a tandem, a charter for tandem bikes.
Okay.
So we did it. This is an odd stop, and a tow boater that I talked to on the river was going by, and he took the picture and sent it to me.
Oh, that's cool.
This one and the next one. So we dropped off all the bicyclers, and so basically this is one of the few times that our boat would be empty because everyone would go.
Yeah.
And they had box trucks that had all their tandem bikes, and there were some single riders too, but mostly tandem. And so they were going to Pendleton and riding from Pendleton to Tri-Cities on this.
Oh,
day.
wow. That's cool.
But yeah.
Yeah. And then we saw that earlier. Yep. And then what do we got here? So
this is the Pacific Star. This is a research vessel. So in 2008, I was captain. And then at the end of that year, the company shut down.
Mm-hmm.
But we knew that one was shutting down months and before. Like we all knew when our last day, though, everyone knew.
Yeah.
And so 2009, I didn't have a job for a while. And my roommate actually worked for Stabert Maritime, which is up in Seattle. and she was like, "Hey, this boat needs a mate on it," and I was like, "I'm on, I'll go." Absolutely. So I hopped on and I was a mate on there for I did 8 weeks as a second mate, and then I was home for like a month, and then I did like 6 more weeks as a chief mate on there. And while I was running as a chief mate, so what we were doing on this boat, there's a picture of me mowing the grass. I think it's at the end.
Okay.
Where I don't even see it.
Yeah.
Did I not send it? I thought I sent it. Oh yeah, go left. It's the third one from the right there on the bottom of what's showing up right.
What am I missing?
Left. To that one right there. Not that one. Next one. So that is a trap. That's a picture. So I would put my track lines on and it would follow me.
Oh, okay.
And so we would call that mowing the grass. So on that boat, I worked down in out of San Francisco Harbor.
Okay.
Worked from San Francisco Harbor all the way up to Brookings, Oregon. And we were surveying the 3-mile border of the ocean of the state.
Oh.
And but this is what we would do. I would go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So we called it mowing the grass. So I had taken a picture and probably sent it to the family. It was like,
that's pretty neat.
This is literally what I'm doing.
Yeah, right.
And but
it was it taking soundings or something, or what?
So it had a big, huge sounder on the bottom of it, and it panned out. It was like a flashlight pan.
Oh, okay.
And so it would do soundings, and then we would have to do cross ties, which would essentially be every so often you would do a line that perpendicular.
Yeah.
That, and we would do that later, and they would then line them all up together.
I see.
And then
so soundings being how deep is the ocean here, but also probably other things, topography.
All topography, and they were actually even studying like seeing fish and different things like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What type of habitats?
So had some of that resolution.
Yeah.
We saw this one. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was on that boat. Yeah. We ran over a blue whale and killed it. I was literally,
this was out in the ocean.
Out in the ocean, and we were
blue whale. So, like I've seen like gray whales, they're smaller, but blue whale's the biggest thing out there.
I know, right? We didn't realize it was a blue whale, and we had been seeing them for I don't know a couple of weeks. We had seen them pop up, and we didn't realize that they were blue whales.
Wow.
And we were off of Fort Bragg, and one came up underneath of us.
Wow.
And I was like 30 seconds from stepping behind the wheel to take over steering so the captain could go eat lunch.
Yeah.
And the engine alarms, and I looked back out the port window, the aft window in the pilot house there, and I was like, there's like a brown murky coming out of the back of the boat. What in the world? And then all of a sudden it started turning red, and we realized that we hit a whale. Well,
wow.
That blue whale washed ashore, and we found out it was a 72-foot long female whale.
Wow.
And our blade had put a 9-foot gash in its back.
Oh man, that is
crazy.
Incredible.
And
but
yeah, so we reported it because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
In the history of California, we are the only ones that have ever reported it. In the news, 2 other blue whales had washed up on shore within the last week or two that nobody had reported.
Nobody reported
about it, but ours was a big, huge deal.
yeah, because you reported it. Yeah. So, wow.
Yeah.
Looks like you're.
So that's actually just above Hood River on the way downriver, and we were overtaking the boat that's the furthest one away.
Yeah.
And then the one that's going with the rock on it was actually going downbound, so he was in between us.
And how do you know who goes on which side?
Well, we talk on the radio, and
so you just say, "Hey, I'll go on the."
We're on VHF radio, and the Rose Point, which is a chart system, actually, we have AIS, so we all track just like airplanes do. And so we send out FM signals.
It's like a transponder.
Yep.
Ah, okay.
So when you're in the vicinity of somebody, you can see them. You can go on marine traffic and see all boats all over the world.
Okay.
But on the vessel, it only shows the ones within a close proximity.
I see.
So we were able to see where the meeting points are, so then you can make arrangements for overtaking. So
what do
so
you
yeah.
say? Do you say I'm going on the left? That doesn't make, like, you wouldn't say that.
No, usually. So the one that we were overtaking, and
Yep.
I think that's the Tidewater. We talked to them, and I let them know I was going to come up their port side, and
Their
that's
port side. Okay.
their port
Yeah.
side, or asked them if they had a preference.
Yeah.
Because if I would have overtaken them on their starboard side, then they would have been up tight to the Washington side, which they didn't want to be. So
Okay.
and then that's probably the Dobby or the Cindy. I don't know which boat that is going down because I can't see the boat itself. But they so then they were downbound. So then I don't remember how our agreements were, but we obviously made agreements to see. I made agreements to see them on starboard to starboard.
Starboard to starboard. Yeah, that makes
sense. He was
sense.
meeting the other guy port to port.
Okay, that makes sense to say starboard to starboard. That way both of you know it's going to be on my right. Okay.
So on the Columbia River, that's what we use. We use port to port and starboard to starboard.
Okay.
You go to other parts of the country and they say on the 1 or the 2 or the red or the green. And you're like,
interesting.
What side is that?
Yeah. I think port to port and starboard to starboard makes the most sense, but yeah.
Absolutely.
What's this?
So this is the American Spirit.
Okay.
So this boat, I brought her from Jacksonville to San Diego through the Panama Canal.
Okay. Wow.
So, and that
through the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It was very cool. So I was pretty excited about that. I did that with American Cruise Lines.
So your license lets you go on the ocean and whatever too.
Right? Well, that boat didn't actually require.
Oops, I lost you, Andrea. Hopefully we get her back here.
And so, but the company wanted another person.
Sorry, Andrea, we lost you for about 30 seconds there. Can you back up just a second to the Panama thing? Yeah, go ahead.
So that boat doesn't require more than 2 licensed licensed crew.
Okay.
For officers in the bridge. And so I was actually an extra on there, but because I have a license and I know how to navigate and stuff like that, I did the midnight to 4 and the noon to 4 watch on it.
That's awesome.
So so I was a third officer on there, even though I wasn't technically licensed for it.
Right.
So.
Yep. Yeah, and I recognize this. This is Astoria, right?
No,
no, it's not.
That's in Jacksonville.
Oh, okay. For some reason, it reminded me of Astoria. I guess the bridge.
It does. It looks
a bit low.
It almost looks like you're at the Pier 1.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was down in that area. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so that's in Jacksonville. That was right before we took off.
Yep.
So that is a screenshot when I was at the furthest south in the world that I've ever been.
Okay. Where is this?
And that is, so Panama, you can't see it on there, but Panama Canal is to the right and north of that.
Okay.
So that's then you have to head south when you leave Panama Canal and go around this little peninsula, and then you head up north.
Okay. Towards,
North America. So
that's pretty neat.
That was about 420 miles north of the equator.
Okay.
I was I think it was at 7 degrees north, and I was telling the captain, I'm like, are you sure we can't just go 420 miles south?
Right. Yeah.
We're just right there.
I know, right?
So
across the equator. This looks like
so that is a fathometer.
Fathometer,
is a picture. So you can see like the orange and stuff, and you can see the 50 up there.
Yeah.
And then it drops down. So that is going over Celilo Falls, which is just above the Dalles Dam.
Okay.
So it's just one of those cool, like I always show it to deckhands and stuff. I'm like, when we're going, because you're seeing it's like 40, 50 feet. And then we drop down 100, drops down.
So this was like an actual waterfall before the dam?
Yes. That was Celilo Falls before the Dalles Dam was put in.
Wow, that's cool. That is really cool. Wow.
So that's on the Mississippi, and that's
Okay.
in Baton Rouge.
Hmm.
And we call that the clip dock.
Okay.
Looks like a bunch of paper clips.
Yeah, sure does.
Just kind
Yeah,
of a
that's
cool
cool.
picture. This is
Box.
leaving McNary Dam. It is
Oh,
just
okay.
another one of those ones I was like, I just get the best views ever.
No kidding. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
Family.
family, this was on the Queen of the West in
Hmm.
2013, right before I took a new job. I wasn't
Hmm.
planning on. I actually thought I would be here for longer, and then I went back to the Mississippi where, and I talked to a captain over there, and ended up then changing companies that next season. So,
Yeah.
but I had happened to with American Cruise Lines for officers. One of the things that they used to do, I don't know if they still do or not, but I could bring on, I could do one room worth of people basically a
Hmm.
year. So I
Yeah.
could have brought my parents on once a year if I wanted, or somebody else.
Yep.
So I had worked there this was the fourth season, and I had never brought anyone on yet. So I was like, can I bring my mom and dad and my grandpa and grandma and my grandpa's brother and sister? And they said yes.
That's
And
cool.
so grandpa and grandma didn't do the whole trip because they
Mm.
actually had to leave early so they could go to South Carolina.
Mm.
But yeah, so but that they had never been on the boat, so they got to ride on the boat with me.
That's pretty neat. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah.
That was the second time my parents had ridden, but they had never ridden with. That was the first time I was captain. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and that was me showing my grandpa what I was doing.
Yeah. That's neat.
And we were leaving Jansen Beach dock right there.
Oh, okay. Yep. Makes sense.
That is just a fun picture that someone, and more so because my hair is super crazy in it. I
Yeah.
chuckle because the previous picture, my hair was in a bun because with ACL, I had to have my hair tied back. But with this
Right.
company, I didn't have to. And it's just my hair was super long. And so it was like,
Yeah.
that's at the Dalles.
Yeah. That's neat. Going through the dam there. So you're at.
Back to the Queen of the West.
Oh, sorry, I must have lost you for a little bit there. Um, you're standing at a. This is. Tell me
So
what's going on here.
so the where I was showing grandpa what I was doing in that other picture, this is the same thing but on the port side of the boat. And so that's called the wing station.
Okay.
So all the controls for the vessel, like all the maneuvering controls for the vessel, are right there.
Oh,
So
cool.
I'm steering the boat into the John Day lock right there.
So you can run it from this, but you can also run
Yeah.
it from the
Yeah.
inside. Yeah.
So anytime we lock or dock, we do it from outside.
Right. Yep.
That's in Panama Canal. That was the chief engineer that
Mm-hmm.
was on the boat. And then Kirsten was one of my deckhand.
Mm-hmm.
She's another person I know, none of you know her, but she got her diving license and has been all over the world. So that's kind of why I was like, she's this girl that got on boats as a deckhand just for something random. And now she's traveling the
That's
world
so cool. Yeah.
water
It,
diaper.
that's really neat. Yeah. Just kind of opens up an opportunity and
Yeah.
rolling. Yeah.
And that was me on the American Spirit. And that
Mm-hmm.
was somewhere between Panama and San Diego.
No, that's fun. Yeah. That sounds like it was a fun adventure.
Yeah. We had
That
autopilot and my feet were up on the desk.
yeah. Yeah. So I'm really curious, um like becoming a captain, that is a position of real leadership, like, and you have to be a leader. Like there's really no other option. You have to be a good leader if you're a captain. So is that something that you feel has really kind of like pushed you as a person and made you grow in a lot of like different ways?
Definitely some for sure. Um, I know. Well, one of the reasons I became a captain, I even took the job in the first place, is because I was tired of other people coming in and tell me how it was done when I knew how it was done. So that's a alpha personality.
Sure.
Um, but then I like to teach people anyways. That's something
Mm-hmm.
especially I have found for sure in this field anyways that I really enjoy teaching others. And so
Yeah.
I was doing that. But probably the biggest things that have pushed me out of my boundaries is I have to do I have to talk in front of people all the time. And growing up, in school to do a speech, I skipped that day of school if possible. I
Yeah.
was not
Yeah.
doing that. And I remember the first time I had to do it, Dad tells me, "Oh, it's good for you." He's like, "It'll be really good for you." So now I chuckle because Dad's the chairman and has to
Right. Now
make
he has to
announcements.
be up there.
I'm like,
You
"It's
tell
good for
him
you,
it's good for you. I love it.
Dad." But yeah, so
Yeah.
um, when I talk to crew, I don't have any problem with that because I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because I'm teaching them,
Hmm.
and that's what it is. But I will say that my least favorite thing still is to do farewell toast and
Oh yeah.
welcome aboard toasts and
Yeah.
speeches. And I'm like, I hate, and honestly, I don't ever do the toast part because
Yeah.
that's not part of my back. I don't even think about it. They'll be like,
Yeah.
"Are you
Yeah.
gonna do toast?" I'm like, "No, I'm just gonna say welcome aboard. You guys can do the toast." I'm like, that's just awkward to me because
Yeah.
for one, I don't know. It's just not on
Yeah.
my, so they
It's not
usually
a
let me
very
get away with that.
finished
But
thing to do. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Makes sense.
I've learned, and I've learned tricks and I've learned different things that I've said that get a chuckle out of everyone. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know different things to use, when our passengers get on in Clarkson, I always ask them, I'm like, "So how many of you were a little surprised when there was no green trees?" And they're all like, yeah. Or how many of you expected to see green trees? And there's a few people that raise their
Yeah.
hand. I'm like, "Yeah, well, welcome to the high desert." And so that always
Yeah.
somehow that
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
gets a laugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so there's things, that I've learned, but I still, those things, those are the ones that I get nervous about. Those are the
Yeah.
ones that I don't want to go do. But
That makes sense.
the other
Yeah.
stuff, I'm like, that's easy. If I'm talking with crew, it's easy.
Right. Well, a couple of things about that. Like you said that like you got into basically leadership and being a captain because it was like other people coming in telling you. I mean, you knew how to do it, and I think that is a lot of times like the reluctant leader. It's like it needs to be done. Someone's got to do
Yeah.
it, so I guess I'll do
Yeah.
it. Um, and it's not so much that you like power; it's that you like things to be in order and you want it to happen the way that it should, and so someone's got to do it. So you step up and do it.
Yeah.
Um, and I've had to also kind of develop into more of a public speaker as well with my job. And we have our conference that we do every year, and I'm the one who introduces and then says goodbye at the end.
Yeah.
So I kind of have to do that as well in front of, 3, 4, 500 people. But I've found that like my most comfortable is when I'm in front of them talking about the tech, the stuff that I know, the stuff that I just like, this is my job. This is what I have loved doing since I was 12.
Yeah.
So like, that's no problem. I can talk tech all day long. And, like eventually they got to pull me off the stage. Like that's a different story. So I think that's similar. I gave my first like public talk almost 10 years ago. It's coming up on 10 years ago, and it was easy because it was stuff I knew. It was just technical.
Absolutely. My first talk, I can still remember my first talk. I felt like inside I was shaking. I could hear my voice shaking.
Yeah.
And I asked the crew later on, I was like, "Could you hear my voice shaking?" They're like, "No."
It's true. Yeah. We're our own most. Oh, looks like I lost you again.
But
Yeah, whoops. I think I lost you for a little bit again. It's actually been really steady. Just a few dropouts here and there. So that's been
yeah,
good.
it was doing really well. Now all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's dropping again. But
Yeah, yeah. People getting
yeah,
home, I guess, and starting to use the internet, maybe. I don't know. Um uh anything else that comes to mind about actually I want to ask you this. If someone's out there like watching this, because we don't know, there could be people who are younger or newer in their career or even further in their career and they're thinking about something different. Is this, I know your current company situation, it's not the greatest right now, but like, is this a career path you would recommend to others?
I yes and no. It is a really good career, and
Mhm.
for me, it turned into a career probably in about 2010 or 11 when I was like, I'm clearly not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I really do enjoy what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
um it this is when it really turned into a career. And it is a great job. I would recommend, one of the things is you're gone for so long.
Yeah.
So it's a great job to do for a short season for fun and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if you could do it with a friend somewhere, it's even more
Yeah.
fun because at least you have someone, and you
Mm-hmm.
have someone that's like-minded,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big thing because I work in an industry. It doesn't mean there isn't other Christians there, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not Christian based.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And I see all kinds of
Yeah.
people, and and yes, I'm supposed to love them all, but it doesn't mean that I agree with everything that I see. And so
No.
I'm around that a lot. So it desensitizes me to things that maybe it shouldn't. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like the military, you know, it's
Yeah.
good and it's bad.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
highly recommend it. I would, I'm interested in going into towboats now,
Mm-hmm.
especially with not having a job at the moment,
Yeah.
just because I feel like there's less people and it's just more like you do the job and then you come home.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, I might not enjoy that as much because I'm pretty social. I've found that I'm actually a lot more social than I thought.
Funny. Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. But
Well,
it has
and
been a really good job for me. It's been
yeah.
a great career. It has allowed me to do a ton of things. It allows me to almost do what I want when I'm off. So,
Yeah.
which is nice. So
That is.
I mean, I'm
Well,
busy, but
yeah, totally.
but yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Andrew. I really appreciate you kind of showcasing all this stuff. I learned a ton. This is like, yeah, I mean, every time I do one of these interviews, I'm just like blown away with what people have have accomplished and done. And I didn't know any of that stuff about like going to Panama. And I mean, I knew you were
Yep.
a captain, but like not much other than that.
Yep.
And this is just absolutely fascinating. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who are listening, you can either send obviously the let people know that this interview is on Facebook, but more likely you can send them the YouTube link. Don't post it publicly. We don't do that necessarily with these. But if you want to send it in Messenger or text it to people, that's totally fine. And let me know also if there's anybody else that you would want to see interviewed. I'm definitely taking nominations. I have a few people on my list and whatnot. So, but yeah, thanks again, Andrea. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamin. Bye.
Bye, everybody.